Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Nice to see you all out here. Hope you're having a good day so far. I would like you to go ahead and open up your Bibles to the book of Zechariah, chapter 10. And little brief comment before we dive into the section of Scripture that we find ourselves in. You know, one of the great many themes that runs throughout the entire course of the Bible is this idea of God's ability to take what's broken and then fix it and use it according to His glory, for His own purposes. And we see that broadly with the entire human race. In Genesis chapter 3, we saw human beings fall. Mankind fell because of sin. And then shortly after that, you have the Tower of Babel. And how from there, they all joined up together and they wanted to take God off of His throne. Josephus records that even some of them were shooting arrows up in the sky as if that was going to do anything at all. But that's what they wanted to do. They knew that God existed, and they wanted to take Him off of His throne. And so God said, well, that's cute. So what did He do? He spread them all throughout the world. He gave them different languages, different tongues. He spread them all throughout the world. And it says in Deuteronomy 32 that it was there that God disinherited all of the nations. When God designed human beings in the book of Genesis, we were all made in God's image. We are still made in God's image. And the purpose of mankind was to be one in unity with God so that we could display His glory, His grace, His mercy, who He really is here on earth. That is what we were meant to be. That's why we are made in His image, to expand His glory and show His dominion over all of the earth. We fell from that. We lost the mission. Game over. Especially after Babel. We spread all over the earth and God disinherited all of the nations. But God knew that this would happen. He knew before He ever even created mankind that this would occur. And so He already had a plan in place. He would bring the promised seed from Genesis 3. And through that seed, through Him, all of the nations of the earth were going to be blessed. That's what He told to Abraham. We see in Psalm 82 where God promises to re-inherit all of the nations. And we know that He does that. He is working on that right now because King Jesus is on His throne. The world can fight against that. They can try and demean you and demonize you and say the teachings of Christianity are nothing but fairy tales and fables and they're outdated moral codes, whatever it is. But the trend has been for the past 2,000 years, what? Is Christianity getting bigger or smaller? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, just like God said it would. We have the promises of the Old Testament that say over and over again, the knowledge of the glory of the Lord is going to fill the earth as much as the waters cover the sea. We also have our key verse in Zechariah, which is what? You should know this. Zechariah 14:9. Maybe I don't talk about it enough, but it really is, in my opinion, like the central focus of what Zechariah is trying to get to right at the end. Zechariah 14:9, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day, the Lord will be one in His name. One. That is what He is working towards. That's what He is building towards. And He does this through this Messiah, this one sitting on a donkey, one whom they pierced, the branch, as He's called 3 times in the book of Zechariah. He's going to do it through Him. And it's wonderful to read the New Testament in light of all of that knowledge, to go back into the Old Testament and see all of that plan start to take place and start developing so that one day everything will be under King Jesus. He'll create a new heavens and a new earth where, guess what? Yeah, we're probably going to work. We're probably going to have tasks. God will be with us as it's promised throughout the Bible, and everything will be as it's supposed to be. We don't see everything as it's supposed to be today. We know that. We understand that. You turn on the news for 2 seconds, and we see that just glaring in our faces. And it gets tiresome. It gets tiresome to see so much evil. And that's not just so much evil, but like so much love for evil. Have you noticed that? Like in the past 20 years, it's not just been more evil growing, it's been more love for evil growing. But we have a greater promise than the assurity that secular, oh my goodness, what is going on this morning? The secular mindset of the culture around us is not going to last. They will say, oh, we've progressed. See, we're just getting better and better and better. And our way is going to be the main way. And Christianity is going to just die. It's going to fizzle out and it's going to die, along with all major religions. But that is not what's going to happen. God has made that abundantly clear many times in the Scriptures. And so to go back into Zechariah 10 and really see this starting to build more and more, and the promises that God makes towards bringing all human beings back under the umbrella of the sovereignty of God and recognizing Him as the true righteous King of all the universe is truly a beautiful thing. It is like wonderful to see this, and how anybody can read the Bible and not see how it's all connected in all these different ways is just astounding. It's like you have to force yourself not to see it in order to get that conclusion. I'm rambling, but it's okay. I get excited about this stuff. Zechariah 10. We previously were talking about verses 1 through 5 and how God had to come down on the shepherds because they were promoting idolatry, something that is under the sovereignty of God, anti-human flourishing, anti-unity under the Messiah. And so God says, you know what? Your time's coming. Your time's coming, and I am going to shepherd my people. And we talked about briefly in verse 4, from him shall come the cornerstone, from him the tent peg, and from him the battle bow, from him every ruler, all of them together. And he promises that all of these aspects are going to be, because of the Hebrew here, it's all going to be met together in one person. The cornerstone, the tent peg, the battle bow, all of them together in one person. That's another theme we find throughout the Bible, how different roles are meshed into one person, namely the Messiah, like priest and king. And we see that here. They don't know exactly who this is talking about. They don't, in their time, in Zechariah's time, they don't know exactly what God is hinting at. But of course, looking back, we know exactly what he's saying. We see all of these qualities met in the Messiah, how he's the cornerstone of our faith. He's the beginning of our faith. He is the thing that holds not only the church together, being the tent peg, but the universe. In Colossians, it makes that abundantly clear. He holds the universe together. Every molecule, every atom, you sitting here being able to draw breath, yeah, thank the Lord for that, literally, because he's literally doing that. From him the battle bow, from him every ruler. We know that Jesus' kingdom is not like an earthly kingdom where you go out and you take the sword and you convert people by force or else they die. No, that's more in the lines of Islam. That's not what Christianity is. Christianity, we go to battle. The king goes to battle with people's hearts and minds, and we change them that way. So, little hint about the Messiah here that he's laying down. We're going to start in verse 6, and we're going to go to verse 12 today. Oh, boy. We might go to verse... We might, you know what? We might be here all night. If it takes us 45 minutes to go through one verse on Wednesday night, hey, we'll see. So it says in verse 6, read with me. I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph. I will bring them back because I have compassion on them. And they shall be as though I had not rejected them. For I am Yahweh their God, and I will answer them. Lot to take apart right there. And believe me when I say we're actually not going to be going strictly verse by verse down to verse 12, because then I really won't be able to finish, and you all will get mad at me. So let's at least examine verse 6 really quick. When you look at the terms like house of Judah and house of Joseph, what's being talked about there? What does that have to do with anything? Well, what was one of Joseph's children? Ephraim. Manasseh, Ephraim, okay? Well, they're identified in the Old Testament as being the northern kingdom. That's like symbolic language going on here. When he says the house of Joseph, that's the northern kingdom, also called Israel. And then you have, before that, house of Judah. That's the southern kingdom being talked about there. It's just Judah. Remember what happened in 1 Kings. How did Israel split again? What happened? You had Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And what happened with Rehoboam is he was the son of Solomon, and he promised to be even crueler on the people than his father was. Well, the people really didn't like that. And so Jeroboam came into the picture, and they split off from there. They didn't want to be under Rehoboam. They wanted to be under Jeroboam. And Jeroboam led them into calf worship from there. Israel split into Israel and Judah from that point. And when if you're a Jew in that time and you're observing that, you see the kingdoms split. You wonder, how is God going to make this kind of thing right? If we're supposed to be the light of the nations, if all the nations are supposed to look to us because we have the light of Yahweh to show them the true way, well, how is that even going to happen if we can't even get along ourselves? How is God going to make this right? Well, God was never worried about it because He knows exactly what's going to happen. He knows exactly how He's going to make it right. They've been split for a few hundred years now. And here God says, I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph. Why does He need to save them? First of all, because they've been split off from Israel. But also, just like Judah went into Babylonian captivity because of their own idolatry, because of their own rebellion, Israel did too. And where did they go into captivity? Hosea chapter 9, verses 1 through 3, identify that they went into captivity with Assyria and Egypt. So they need to be saved from something too. And here is God saying, I'm going to save you guys. I'm going to bring you back together. I'm going to do this. We know, and that's why I said all that at the beginning of the sermon. We know that He does do this, and we know that He will do this in their time, coming up on their time, because God has a plan through the Messiah to bring all of the world, reversing Babel, reversing all the language barriers, reversing all the people barriers. Everybody is going to be brought under Messiah, the Lord Jesus Christ. Everybody, from every tribe, tongue, language, there's no barrier. Followers of Jesus can come from literally everywhere. That's why I always just raise an eyebrow whenever you hear people just trying to discredit Christianity as, well, that's a white man's religion. What? Y'all know that it started in the Middle East, right? And it branched off into Africa. Come on, really? It goes everywhere. And that's because, he's made the promises many times that to Abraham, all of the nations of the world are going to be blessed through you, because the Messiah was going to come through Abraham. And literally, right now, in our day and time, you observe this, y'all Gentiles, me included, we see all of the nations of the earth being blessed by Yahweh, because we're coming under alignment to the ideals and the kingship, the lordship of Jesus Christ. In Galatians chapter 3, verses 28 and 29, says, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither slave nor free. There's neither male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise. But before we can get to Jews and Gentiles being brought together, you have to have Israel and Judah brought together. That's got to be first. And that's why you see in the book of Acts, Where does Philip go? He goes to where? Samaria. Same place. He goes to bring the gospel even to them and present them with the Messiah. He says in verse 6 of Zechariah 10, I will strengthen the house of Judah. I will save the house of Joseph. I will bring them back because I have compassion on them. And they shall be as though I had not rejected them. This is really nice because God gives promises to bless people who have avoided him, who have rebelled against him. He's given promises in the blessings and cursing passages in Deuteronomy 30. You have this section where God says, but if you repent, I'm going to make you prosper. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to be with you. Your fields are going to be full. All of these wonderful things. And, even in this little tiny thing where God says, I'll bring them back because I have compassion on them, it shows what kind of a God that we have. It really does match the loving character and the loving nature of say, the father in the parable of the prodigal son. And, you read that parable where the son's gone off and he's done all these terrible things. He basically said to his father, hey, I want you dead. Give me the money that's owed to me. Go ahead and give that to me. And I'm going to take off. Have fun, Dad. See you later. He goes off. He spends all the money. He gets into terrible, terrible trouble. And he comes back. And what does he get from the father? Love. Acceptance. He runs to his son, which back in that culture, in that day, they had a tunic down around their ankles. He had to hike it up and run, which was very, very dishonorable. But in that parable, the father runs to the son. And we think, surely, that's a very loose picture of God's love and his grace towards those who've turned against him, turned away from him, and have fallen away. Surely when they come back, God's really like, well, hey, I'll let you come back this time, but I'm watching you. I ain't happy about it. That's not it at all. He really is like that. He says, I have compassion on them. I want to bring them back. It'll be as though I had not rejected them. That's what he's going to promise. That's what he is promising for Israel, the house of Joseph, Ephraim, the northern kingdom. And he says, for I am Yahweh, their God. I'm Yahweh, their God. He's basically saying, you're still in the covenant with me. This is covenantal language that's being used, and we've seen this like in Zechariah 8:8, where he says, and I will bring them to dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God. That language is used a few times throughout the Old Testament in order to show covenant language. He's implying covenant language towards Judah and Israel here to show it's not too late. I'm not done with you. I'm going to bring you all back. And we know that God does indeed do that. But he also says this, and I like this. There's these little subtle things that you don't really pick up on if you don't take the time to read a verse slowly and really take it in. What's that last part? And I will answer them. So not only does he promise they're going to be in covenant with me, I'm going to bring them back. I'm going to bless them like I did before, but I will answer them. What do you suppose that's talking about? That's talking about prayer. That is talking about the gift of prayer. When you are in covenant with God, when he saves you, when you are his people, you enjoy something no other human being who does not know him can enjoy. Do you ever just sit and think about what it means that we can pray to him at all, and he listens and he answers? Do you ever think about how special that is? The Psalms have talked about, what's the Psalm? Psalm 8. What is man? That you are mindful of him. Or the Son of Man, that you even consider him. Man's what? Like a worm. We're dust. We're nothing. And yet, this nothingness, this little worm called me, can branch out and reach out to the God who literally created all of the cosmos that we see around us. We're about to see a spectacular event on April 8th. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theories about it. There's stuff to talk about, believe me. But there's being able to see a solar eclipse. Did you ever see that in 2017? I lived in Tennessee when that was going on. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. To see the moon sitting perfectly in front of the sun, and I could see the rays coming off of the sun and the glory of it. It was just wonderful. And the whole universe is filled with stuff like that. And that God who created you, you get to talk to him freely. Never underestimate how special it is that we can talk to him at all. And yet we still what? I'll pray later. Oh, I don't want to pray right now. Man, sometimes I want to smack myself. It's so sad, you know?
We was working back in the 80s outside, and there was a solar eclipse. It was 100%, and it got dark.
It gets dark.
Quit chirping, and it was 99% dark.
Yeah.
So 100%.
Yeah. It's a beautiful sight. Beautiful sight. And we get to see that, and we get to associate with that with the one who created that, and we get to pray to him. That's the promise he's making them. So let's move on. Let's move on to verses 7 through 12. You don't think I'm going to make it? I don't think I'm going to make it, but we're going to try. Verse 7. Let's go with 7 and 8 here, okay? Then Ephraim, remember, northern kingdom, Israel, house of Joseph. Then Ephraim shall become like a mighty warrior. Just going to list a whole bunch of good things here. And their hearts shall be glad as with wine. Their children shall see it and be glad. Their hearts shall rejoice in the Lord. I will whistle for them and gather them in. For I have redeemed them, and they shall be as many as they were before. Do you know why that's significant? That phrase right there, they'll be as many as they were before. Oh, because in Joshua 17, there were so many people in Manasseh, in Ephraim, that they actually kind of complained to Joshua, hey, you know what? You kind of gave us a little bit of land here, Joshua. We're not a small people. And he says, okay, you can also take, so-and-so area. At this point in time, they're small. Very, very small. Few in number. And I bet it would be wonderful to have those numbers back. To be so blessed by God, to be in covenant with him, be so blessed by him that your numbers continue to grow and grow and grow till you get back to your original problem where you don't even have enough room. That's a good thing. Let's go with verse 9. Though I scattered them among the nations, yet in far countries, they shall remember me, and with their children they shall live and return. I will bring them home from the land of Egypt and gather them from Assyria. And I will bring them to the land of Gilead and to Lebanon till there is no more room for them. Egypt and Assyria here, we know that in Hosea chapter 9, verses 1 through 3, these are the places that they were sent. I'll just read that to you really quick. Rejoice not, O Israel, exult not like the peoples, for you have played the whore. Forsaking your God, you have loved a prostitute's wages on all threshing floors. Threshing floor and wine vat shall not feed them, and the new wine shall fail them. They shall not remain in the land of the Lord, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean food in Assyria. That's where he says that they will go to both places. Notice the language of Hosea 9. You're going to go back to Egypt. This is something that he warned Israel for a long time. Don't go back to Egypt. Don't desire to go back to Egypt. I'm trying to take you out of there. I'm trying to free you from all of that. And in judgment, he sends them back because of their own rebellion. They went into that captivity, into Assyria, into Egypt. And of course, this branches all the way back to the original story where He pulled them out of Egypt. The Red Sea incident, all of that. God brought them back out. And all throughout the Old Testament, you see God reminding them again and again and again how much He saved them from when it comes to Egypt. I saved you out of Egypt. Remember that. Sometimes we all need a reminder of what God has saved us from. And of course, Egypt directly correlates for the Christian to the world. Don't go back to the world. He says, I'm going to bring you out. Verse 10, I will bring them home from the land of Egypt and gather them from Assyria, and I will bring them to the land of Gilead and Lebanon till there is no more room. Pay attention to verse 11. He shall pass through the sea of troubles. Yeah, that's a reference to the Exodus. It's not just the New Testament making reference to the Old Testament. Sometimes it's the Old Testament making reference to other things in the Old Testament. And strike down the waves of the sea, and all the depths of the Nile shall be dried up. The pride of Assyria shall be laid low, and the scepter of Egypt shall depart. He's promising to end those places. End those places where, and their political influence throughout the world, their power. He's going to end them. He's going to bring His people back and end them. And we know that He did. Assyria, no more. Egypt, not a problem. Just not a thing anymore. Not as much as it was. Look with me in verse 12, and I'll wrap it up here. I told you we'd make it. Funny thing is, I'm like skipping like 90% of my outline, but it's okay. I will make them strong in the Lord, and they shall walk in His name, declares Yahweh. So, 2 questions. When do we see this fulfilled? And why does it even matter? Number 1, where do we see this fulfilled? I told you the answer at the beginning. What's the correct answer to every Bible question ever? Jesus. There you go. Congratulations. Yes, it's Jesus. We see it solved in Jesus because under the Messiah, He brings in everybody from not only Israel, not only Samaria, but every Gentile nation. He brings them all in so that He can put all things under His feet, all things under His subjection, bless His people, and bless the world when He creates the new heavens and new earth. It starts with the Messiah. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? That's the big question. Why make them strong in the name of the Lord? Why shall we walk in His name, declares Yahweh? You are made in the image of God. Why should we walk after Him? Because you literally represent God here on earth. Think about how special your creation is. You're not a gnat. You're not chimpanzees. You're not fish that crawled out of the ocean. You matter. God intentionally designed you to be His representative. And so, if we're going to be His representative, if we are going to act like we are in His image, then we got to act like it. Be like Him. Love what He loves. Hate what He hates. And through that avenue, everything is going to become new. We are the start of that. Christians are the start of the new creation. Paul calls us that. And one day He'll create a new heavens and a new earth where there will be no more sin, no more darkness, no more death, just righteousness and life forever. That's what we are seeking. That's why we follow Jesus, because there's a bigger story going on than what a lot of people out there think. And so you got to tell them. You have to tell them. They're living in the most amazing epic ever told, and they don't even know it, and they don't even care. Make them care. Explain it to them. Tell them how wonderful this is, why it is good news. Because it really is just amazing. It's not boring stuff. It's not boring stuff. It connects in so many different ways. And in a million years from now, well, I know we're sleepy in the pew. I know. In a million years from now, when we look back, we'll think, wow, I was living then. I was around when that greatest story was being fulfilled. You're going to think that one day. And when you do, you come find me just so I can say you in a Christian heavenly way, I told you so. Okay? I won't gloat, but I will still say, well, I told you. So this morning, if you're a Christian and you've walked away, remember, hey, God is a God who delights to have compassion. That's like his default setting. He loves grace. He loves to show mercy. He loves to show compassion. If you're a Christian, you've walked away, you've been unfaithful, you come forward. We'll pray for you. God will accept you. Although you don't have to come forward. There's no book, chapter, verse for that. If you're not a Christian, you're missing out on the most amazing adventure of your entire existence. Not just life, existence.